Have you ever felt unseen, yet somehow unbreakable? Have you ever sat in a room full of noise and realized that your quiet was stronger than every voice echoing around you? People often mistake silence for weakness. They think those who speak less feel less, that those who keep their stories locked away have no story worth telling. But there's a truth hidden beneath your calm eyes. Silence isn't emptiness. It's a fortress. A fortress built from scars you survived alone, from storms you weathered without witnesses, from countless nights when you held yourself together in the hush of midnight, while the world kept spinning, oblivious to your quiet resilience. And the people who once left you, the ones who thought they could walk away and forget, will one day remember. Because there's a quiet kind of power that doesn't roar. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need validation. It simply stands, immovable, like stone walls that hold secrets no enemy can breach. It's easy to look at loud confidence and mistake it for true strength, but the real warriors are the ones who can sit in silence while chaos swirls around them and remain unmoved. I've learned that silence can be the most devastating reply, that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't shouting your worth, but vanishing into your fortress and returning transformed. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do." That tranquility is your fortress, and within its walls you've become quietly resilient in ways you might not even realize. You see, the people who underestimated you, the ones who left you, the ones who thought your quiet meant weakness, will one day sit in rooms of their own, haunted by echoes of what they let slip away. They'll wonder what secrets you've hidden behind those silent eyes. What glow-up happened while they weren't watching. What fortress you built out of the stones they once threw. And that regret will echo longer than any words ever could. Because you're not just surviving, you're becoming. This video is for you, the quiet warriors, the ones who've rebuilt themselves in silence, the ones who've learned that true resilience doesn't need to be broadcast to the world. Today I'm going to share with you 7 Stoic signs that prove you're quietly resilient, even if you don't yet know it, and why, one day, they'll regret letting you go. Let's step into the fortress together and see the signs you've been carrying all along. There's a storm raging outside the fortress walls, people pounding at the gates with insults, accusations, chaos. Most would rush to fling open the gates, screaming back, proving their worth, demanding justice. But not you. When provoked, you remain still, because you know not every attack deserves a counterstrike, not every accusation deserves your energy, not every fight deserves your sword. And that is the first sign you're quietly resilient. You stay calm when provoked. People often mistake this calm for indifference. They think silence means surrender, that you've been defeated. But inside your fortress, something entirely different is happening. Your stillness isn't emptiness. It's calculation. It's strategy. It's a silent assessment of whether this battle even deserves your presence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." Quietly resilient people know how to control that estimate. I remember a time in my own life when someone tried to publicly humiliate me. It was a meeting room full of people. Voices rose. The person across the table leaned forward, voice sharp, eyes full of challenge. The entire room froze, waiting for me to explode. But I didn't. Instead, I looked at them, let a silent moment stretch between us like a drawn blade, and calmly said, "I don't think this conversation deserves my energy right now." And I left the room. Later, the same people who witnessed that moment came to me quietly. They said, "I've never seen anyone handle an attack like that. It made them look small, and you looked untouchable." That's the secret. Calmness under fire makes you untouchable. It's easy to scream back, easy to throw words like daggers. But when you remain unmoved, the battlefield shifts entirely. because your silence forces others to confront themselves, while you remain safe behind the fortress gates. And here's the paradox that makes quiet resilience so haunting. The calmer you are, the more they wonder what you're capable of. Your silence becomes a mirror, and when people look into it, they often see the reflection of their own chaos. I've seen it in relationships. Someone picks a fight, hoping you'll rage, cry, beg. Instead, you stand quietly, eyes clear, voice low. You refuse to rise to the bait, and suddenly, they're the only one left screaming. That's the fortress mindset. Your calm is your fortress walls. Your silence is the locked gate. Some might call it cold. Others will say you're detached. But the truth is, your calm is built from every moment you survive storms alone. From nights when you cried quietly instead of collapsing publicly. From times when you learned that emotional mastery is quiet revenge. Because nothing unsettles people more than realizing they can no longer disturb your peace. It's why exes regret leaving, why toxic friends regret losing you, because they expect chaos. They expect to still have the power to shake your walls. But instead, they find stone. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Quietly resilient people don't lower themselves to chaos. They let storms die outside the fortress gates. And eventually, those same people who tried to provoke you will remember how your silence made them feel small, how your refusal to engage forced them to stand alone in their noise. And one day, they'll regret losing the one person whose calm was a shelter they didn't know they needed. So ask yourself, when was the last time someone tried to provoke you and you chose stillness instead of war? This week, practice letting insults hit the fortress walls and slide off harmlessly. Because true resilience isn't in shouting back, it's in remaining unmoved. There's a strange truth in life. Sometimes your presence doesn't make people realize your value, but your absence does. That's the second sign you're quietly resilient. Your absence speaks louder than your presence. See, quietly resilient people leave behind an invisible shape in the rooms they exit. A hush that settles like dust in the air. A space that somehow feels colder, emptier, because you're no longer there. People notice when the fortress gates close. At first, they may convince themselves it's nothing. You're just quiet. You're just busy. But deep inside, a quiet anxiety begins to bloom. Because they realize they've lost access to your calm presence, to the fortress they once took for granted. It happens in relationships all the time. Someone pulls away, thinking they're in control. They believe leaving you will prove how replaceable you are. But days turn into weeks, and suddenly the absence grows heavier. Late at night, they scroll through old photos. They hear songs that remind them of how your silence felt like safety. They remember your steady voice, your unshakable calm, and they realize your absence now fills every room they walk into. I once knew a woman who, after a painful breakup, said nothing. No dramatic posts, no desperate calls, no attempts to prove she was living her best life. She simply vanished from his world. Months later, she told me he'd messaged her saying, "It's like there's a hole in my life where you used to be, and I can't fill it with anyone else." That's the fortress mindset. Because quietly resilient people understand a powerful secret. Absence is presence. It's easy to believe power comes from being seen, from being loud, from showing the world you've moved on. But the real power lies in the void you leave behind. Your absence becomes a fortress wall they cannot scale, a locked gate they no longer have the keys to. And the haunting part? People fill silence with their imagination. They invent stories to explain your absence. And often, their imagination punishes them far more than the truth ever could. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Silence is a form of knowledge." When you withdraw, you're not running away. You're gathering power. You're letting them wonder. Your absence forces them to confront the echoes of their choices, to face the reality that maybe they let go of someone irreplaceable. I've seen it in workplaces too. A quiet employee who suddenly leaves. People barely notice them while they were there. But soon the gaps appear. Projects stall. Problems resurface. And the same people who underestimated them start whispering, "I didn't realize how much they held everything together." That's silent power. People regret losing quietly resilient people because they only discover your true value in the hush that follows your exit. And here's the secret most will never admit. Regret grows louder in silence. When you're absent, your value becomes a question that echoes in their mind. And regret is the question that never finds an answer. Your presence is precious, but your absence is priceless. So if you've ever felt invisible, remember this: your quiet has weight. Your disappearance can shift entire rooms. You are the storm that doesn't need to rage, because your silence alone can haunt the spaces you leave behind. Ask yourself, whose world would tilt if you vanished tomorrow? And if you know the answer, that's proof enough that your quiet resilience has power they'll never forget. Because one day, those who thought you were replaceable will sit alone in silent rooms, wondering how they ever let you slip away. There's a strange freedom in no longer feeling the need to explain yourself. Because the third sign that you're quietly resilient is this: you let people think what they want. It's one of the hardest truths to accept. Humans crave understanding. We want others to get us, to know our intentions, to see our goodness. But quietly resilient people know not everyone deserves the privilege of understanding your story. Sometimes the greatest power you can hold is silence. People might call you guarded, cold, mysterious. But what they don't see is that you've learned a vital lesson. The more you explain, the more ammunition you give people to twist your words. When you refuse to explain, you become untouchable. Because the moment you try to convince someone of who you are, you place your narrative in their hands. And quietly resilient people guard their narrative like a fortress. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." Quietly resilient people live by this. They understand that explaining yourself often changes nothing. People believe what they want to believe. Their perception is a fortress you cannot storm. And so you save your energy. I remember a friend who, after ending a long friendship, chose not to speak ill of the other person. Even when rumors started flying, even when mutual friends demanded to know the truth. She simply said, "I wish them well." No explanation, no gossip. Years later, the truth surfaced on its own. The person who betrayed her exposed themselves through their own behavior, and everyone who doubted her came back with apologies. She never had to say a word. That's the fortress mindset. You let people invent stories. You let them whisper, because you know that silence is narrative control. When someone leaves you, they want you to react. They want you to defend yourself, to pour out confessions that can be twisted, replayed, misunderstood. But when you choose silence, you rob them of that power. Because in the absence of your word, they're left with nothing but their own speculation. And speculation is often more haunting than truth. Imagine someone who left you checking your social media, desperate for a clue about how you're coping. They want to know if you're heartbroken, angry, lost. But your quiet feed offers them nothing. No quotes about betrayal, no cryptic messages, no digital trail of tears. Just silence. And that silence becomes a fortress wall they cannot breach. They begin to question, are they hurting, or have they already moved on? Did I ever really know them? That's quiet power, because sometimes the greatest revenge isn't proving your side of the story, but letting them drown in the echoes of what you never said. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Quietly resilient people understand this deeply. Not every truth needs to be spoken. Not every wound needs to be shared. Your silence is sacred, because the people who demand explanations are often the ones least deserving of your truth. So if you find yourself endlessly explaining who you are, pause. Ask yourself, do they deserve this piece of me? And if the answer is no, close the fortress gates. Let them think what they want. Let the rumors swirl. Let curiosity eat at them in the hush of midnight. Because one day those who left you will realize they never truly knew you at all. And that regret will echo in every silent room they enter. So this week, try choosing silence where you'd normally explain. Let your quiet become your shield. Let them wonder, because the more they wonder, the more they'll regret letting you go. One of the most quietly resilient things you'll ever do is transform without announcing it. Because the fourth sign that you're quietly resilient is this: you disappear quietly and return unrecognizable. In a world obsessed with broadcasting every step of self-improvement, quietly resilient people move in shadows. They rebuild themselves in silence, far away from curious eyes, far away from validation-seeking posts. While others share every moment of their glow-up, you choose a different path, a path paved in silence. That's the fortress mindset. People often mistake your silence for stagnation. They think you've been left behind. But what they can't see is that inside your fortress, you're evolving. Piece by piece, you're building new strength. Layer by layer, you're shedding old versions of yourself, quietly, methodically, without fanfare. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Quietly resilient people take the obstacles life throws at them and transform them into stepping stones, and they do it silently. I once knew a man who, after losing his job, vanished from everyone's radar. People whispered, assumed he'd given up, that he was hiding in shame. But a year later, he reappeared, stronger, calmer, sharper. He'd started his own business, built new skills, and walked into a room not as the man they remembered, but as someone they barely recognized. He didn't announce his transformation. He let the results speak, and you could see it in the eyes of those who doubted him. Regret. That's quiet power, because quietly resilient people understand that true transformation happens in private, away from noise, away from hungry eyes waiting for you to stumble. While others need an audience for their glow-up, quietly resilient people build their glow in secret, and when they return, they're unrecognizable. People regret letting quietly resilient people go because they lose access to watching the transformation unfold. They only see the finished masterpiece and realize they no longer have a seat at your table. Your quiet evolution becomes your silent revenge, because nothing unsettles those who left you, like realizing you've become untouchable in their absence. It happens digitally too. People expect you to post the usual heartbreak content after a breakup. Cryptic quotes, sad selfies, public healing. But quietly resilient people go silent. No posts, no captions, no trail of sorrow. And months later, you return online, radiating a calm confidence that makes people wonder, what happened while we weren't watching? That's the fortress gate swinging open, just enough for the world to glimpse the glow inside. Your quiet transformation leaves people haunted because they know they're no longer part of the story. Marcus Aurelius also said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Quietly resilient people don't talk about who they're becoming. They simply become it. So if you've been working on yourself in silence, keep going. You owe no one a progress report. One day, those who underestimated you will see the glow in your eyes and realize they let go of someone they'll never get to know again. So ask yourself, what old versions of you are dying quietly right now, making space for the person you're about to become? Because the fortress you build in silence is where your quiet rebirth begins. Not every storm has to be met with thunder, because the fifth sign that you're quietly resilient is this: you've mastered your emotions. There's a cruel myth in this world that silence is emptiness, that people who don't scream their pain or broadcast their feelings have none at all. But quietly resilient people know silence is often a sign of emotional mastery. It's easy to assume that loud anger, passionate arguments, and tears on command mean someone is real or authentic. But real authenticity often lives behind fortress walls, quietly, unseen. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone does wrong, the harm is to himself, but perhaps he hasn't done wrong. In any case, keep your own mind at ease." Quietly resilient people keep their minds at ease. When someone tries to provoke you, you don't collapse into rage. You don't perform your heartbreak for an audience. You don't fall apart publicly just to prove you're feeling something. Instead, you breathe. You let the storm crash against your fortress walls, while inside your spirit remains unmoved. That's emotional mastery. I remember a woman who, after discovering her partner's betrayal, didn't rage or post cryptic social media captions. She quietly packed her bags, left a simple note, and disappeared from his life. No explanations, no breakdowns, no screaming matches. Months later, he reached out, begging for closure, but her silence remained unbroken, and that silence became the echo of regret in his life. Because nothing haunts people more than realizing they no longer have the power to disturb your peace. That's quiet revenge. People expect you to explode. They expect dramatic exits, furious texts, public outbursts, because your chaos reassures them that they still matter in your world. But when you remain calm, you become a fortress they can't breach. Your silence leaves them facing themselves, and sometimes that's the harshest punishment of all. Marcus Aurelius also said, "The best answer to anger is silence." Quietly resilient people know that silence is not weakness, it's control. It's the art of choosing where to spend your emotional currency. Because every outburst costs you, every explanation drains your power, every attempt to prove your worth to someone unworthy steals time from your own quiet evolution. There's a reason quiet people often get underestimated. The world thinks those who don't react have nothing to say. But quietly resilient people are simply calculating whether the conversation is even worth having. And more often than not, it isn't. That's the fortress mindset. Your emotions are your fortress gates. You decide who's allowed inside. People regret letting quietly resilient people go because they realize too late that your emotional steadiness was the calm anchor they never knew they needed. Because while they chase chaos, you were becoming untouchable. So if you find yourself feeling pressured to explain your feelings, remember this: some fires are meant to die in silence. Your silence is your fortress. Your peace is your quiet revenge. And one day, those who tried to provoke you will sit alone, haunted by the realization that your emotional mastery was the very thing that made you irreplaceable. So ask yourself, who in your life keeps trying to pull you into storms that you've already outgrown? This week, let your silence answer questions meant only to provoke. Because true strength doesn't always need to raise its voice. Quietly resilient people don't announce their boundaries, they live them. And that's the sixth sign you're quietly resilient. You maintain standards without saying a word. See, the world is loud with declarations. If you disrespect me, I'm leaving. I don't tolerate disloyalty. Cross me once, you're dead to me. But quietly resilient people don't need declarations. Their boundaries are built into the fortress walls of their life. Because silently enforced standards are far stronger than loudly proclaimed ones. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." Quietly resilient people waste no time arguing what respect should look like. They simply leave situations where it doesn't exist. Imagine someone insults you publicly, expecting you to fight back, to cry, to scream. Instead, you simply look at them, expression calm, and walk away. No drama, no explanations. That's silent power, because your absence becomes your loudest statement. I once knew a man who ended a long friendship because his friend continually made cruel jokes at his expense. He didn't announce it, didn't post about cutting toxic people off. He simply stopped calling, stopped responding, slowly withdrew, until one day the friend realized they'd been locked outside the fortress gates. Months later, the friend tried to reconnect. Apologies, invitations, explanations, but it was too late. The man's silence had set a price that could not be paid. That's the fortress mindset. When you silently enforce your standards, people remember. Because they don't get the satisfaction of debating you, they don't get to plead their case, they simply discover that the door has quietly closed. And once it closes, regret becomes the only sound echoing in the silence. Quietly resilient people don't punish others. They simply remove themselves. They don't throw ultimatums, they vanish. Because they understand a powerful truth. Your silence sets the price. People often mistake this for coldness, but it's not cold, it's clarity. It's knowing your peace is worth more than any argument. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." Quietly resilient people don't become cruel when wronged. They become silent, and silence is the most elegant rejection of chaos. Because people who crossed you will spend months replaying moments in their mind, trying to pinpoint the exact second when they lost access to you. That's the silent punishment. No shouting, no scenes, just quiet distance. That grows into regret. Digital silence plays a part in this too. We live in a world where people check who's viewed their stories, who liked their posts, who still follows them. Quietly resilient people remove themselves quietly. They unfollow without announcement. They stop engaging. And the person who wronged them notices. They see that quiet absence online and wonder, did I push them too far? Can I fix this? But the fortress gates remain shut because quietly resilient people know that true standards don't require speeches. They require quiet exits. So if you've ever felt the urge to declare your boundaries loudly, pause. Ask yourself, could silence be the louder answer? Because sometimes the most powerful thing you'll ever say is nothing at all. And one day those who crossed you will realize your silent standards cost them far more than they ever imagined. Some of the strongest people in this world are misunderstood on purpose. Because the seventh sign that you're quietly resilient is this: you're comfortable being misunderstood. For many people, the idea of being misunderstood is torture. They want to defend themselves, to correct rumors, to explain every silence and every choice until everyone understands. But quietly resilient people have learned a secret. Not everyone deserves to know your truth. There's a quiet freedom in letting people think whatever they want. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Quietly resilient people live by this, because trying to convince the world who you are is a battle with no end. It drains your spirit. It gives power to those who never deserved to hold your narrative in the first place. So quietly resilient people let the misunderstandings come, and they let them go. People might say, they're too cold, they're distant, they're hiding something. Maybe you are. Maybe you're hiding your peace, your boundaries, your quiet fortress built to protect the sacred parts of yourself. You're not hiding from people. You're choosing who gets access. Because the truth is, not everyone has earned the right to know your story. I've seen it happen countless times. Someone cuts ties with a toxic partner. Instead of telling the world why, they simply disappear. Friends and family demand explanations, but the quietly resilient person remains silent. And eventually the truth reveals itself in ways words never could. Because silence always survives the chaos. People regret letting quietly resilient people go because they realized too late that the mystery was the gift. Your quiet aura made you magnetic. Your boundaries made you valuable. Your refusal to be read like an open book made you unforgettable. There's power in mystery. In a world addicted to oversharing, quietly resilient people choose a different path. They keep some doors closed. They protect their inner rooms from visitors. And people wonder, why won't they let me in? What secrets are they keeping? That's the fortress mindset. Your silence is a locked gate, and only a chosen few will ever hold the keys. Because people who misunderstand you often want control, not connection. They want to pick apart your reasons, to find weaknesses, to re-enter your life. But quietly resilient people refuse to hand over that power. They let people misunderstand them because they know that silence is protection. Marcus Aurelius also wrote, "The tranquility that comes when you stop caring what they say, or think, or do." Quietly resilient people have chosen tranquility over being understood, because the people who truly belong in your life won't demand constant explanations. They'll respect your quiet. They'll feel your standards, even when unspoken. So if you find yourself wanting to explain who you are, pause. Ask yourself, does this person deserve to know my truth? Or have I simply grown too used to over-explaining myself to people who never really listened? Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is smile, say nothing, and let them wonder. One day those who left you will realize that your quiet was not emptiness, it was a fortress. And the fact that they were never allowed past its gates will be the regret they carry into every silent room they enter. So this week, practice letting misunderstandings pass you by. Keep your narrative sacred. Let curiosity be your quiet revenge. Because when you're comfortable being misunderstood, you become untouchable. So now you know. Quiet resilience isn't a weakness, it's a fortress. A place you build stone by stone. From all the moments you chose silence over chaos. From the times you left rooms quietly instead of fighting to be understood. From the days when you let your absence speak louder than your words ever could. Each of these 7 signs is a secret weapon. A quiet glow that doesn't demand applause. A silent power that grows unseen, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." And quietly resilient people live by this, because they know that revenge doesn't always arrive with thunder. Sometimes it arrives in the hush of midnight, in the quiet rebirth of someone who's become untouchable. People who left you will one day regret letting you go. Not because you screamed your worth, but because you simply became someone they can no longer reach. Someone whose fortress gates stay closed to those who didn't value what was inside. They'll remember the sound of your laughter, the calm in your eyes, the weight of your silence, and they'll wonder how they let someone so quietly powerful slip through their fingers. That's the echo of regret. It's the storm that rages in the minds of those who thought your quiet was emptiness, when in reality, it was your greatest strength. So if you've ever doubted yourself, if you've wondered whether your silence makes you invisible, remember this. Your silence is your fortress, your quiet is your shield, and your resilience is the reason they'll regret letting you go. Because in a world addicted to noise, those who master silence become unforgettable. So this week, hold your silence where you'd normally explain. Let your presence glow quietly, and let your absence echo in places you've outgrown. Ask yourself, who will regret letting me go once my fortress is complete? If this message resonated with you, and if you'd like to keep building your fortress of quiet power, consider subscribing to Stoic Viva for more reflections on resilience, quiet strength, and the hidden wisdom of silence. And if you found value here, like, share, or leave a comment below. Let's build this fortress together, because quietly resilient people don't announce their power, they simply become it.